Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 552 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Cryo Media Network. Yeah, boom. Today, recording day is Wednesday, January 2025. And it looks like it'll be a pretty decent day here at the Beaver Lodge, although rather crisp. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Good morning to you, sir. How is your mental health doing today?
I think I've come to the conclusion why I've had such terrible insomnia. I did get a little bit of sleep last night, so I probably got about 4.5, 5 hours of solid sack time, which is a step in the right direction because 2.5 the night before is just not cutting it. I think I've come to the conclusion that it might be the depression that's doing it to me, because that's one of the aspects of depression is lack of sleep, and you're always fatigued and always tired, and I think that might be it. For those of who deal with depression, it's not always doom and gloom and feeling like you hate yourself. Sometimes it's just you can't sleep and you don't sleep and you're tired all the time. And that might be what's taking place here. I did get out, I get out every day for a nice long walk with Lola. Well, a little bit shorter when it's really cold because the poor thing refuses to wear boots. And I don't want her paws to freeze because she's my little girl. So, getting the sunlight, getting out, getting some social time is all good, and it all helps and it all contributes. But yeah, I think it's definitely the depression that's kicking in. And isn't January 8th supposed to be like Blue Monday?
Something like that, yeah.
It's like 6th or 8th, or maybe it's next week. I don't know, but it's around this time where they say. Now that was just a marketing tool by a department store, I think, or something. But there's some science that actually does back that up, so it could very well be the case.
Yeah, they said it was the saddest day of the year for some reason. I can't remember what.
Post-Christmas, post-holidays, the bills start coming in, and it's the dead of winter for the Northern Hemisphere. Southern Hemisphere, it's the dead of summer. So
yeah, it's January 20th. It says the term was coined by psychologist Cliff Arnold back in 2004 when travel company Sky Travel asked him for a scientific formula for the January blues. So there you
marketing.
go.
Yeah,
and also a really kick-ass song by New Order.
Yes.
Especially the remix.
Well,
yes.
and
given a second life recently by Kylie Minogue, by the way.
Yes. Did you also know that today is Elvis's birthday?
I saw that in the description, and he is still alive.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. He lives in Tweed.
Yes.
He's 90 this year. 91? Can't remember.
Happy birthday to the king. All the cheeseburgers you want.
Oh, thank
Just
you. Thank
saying.
you very much. Thank you.
A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, The Peppermaster, The Misfit Mysteries from Corwin Publishing, and CanadianTerror.com. I'm in a particularly good mood. Curling team won again last night. Curling team won on Monday. Hopefully can keep the trend going today. So personal good stuff for me. Lots of stuff going on in the world, as you could tell by the title description. Something happened.
Well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Unlike other shows, or maybe not today, depending. But unlike other shows that will lead off with that and we'll dance to that tune and make it the thing, as far as we're concerned, it's a thing that happened
Yes.
among a lot of things that happen and a lot of things that are going to happen coming from that side of the equation. So we'll talk about it, but we'll give it the place that it deserves. And I'm not saying that this is not important. It is,
No.
but we'll work it in tangentially to how it affects certain players on our chessboard rather than like, oh my God, did you hear the unacceptable thing that so and so said today?
I just love the
Dance,
PM's
yell.
response.
The PM's response was great.
He has no
But
F's left to give. None.
yeah,
0.
and I predicted that
Yeah.
in a tweet the other day, like this, that the Prime Minister would have no F's to give, more related to the foreign interference report, right? Because the way that the Prime Minister did things, I mean, in one way, it's kind of clever. In one way, it's late. It doesn't give a lot of runway for the next leader at all. It does because the estimates apparently need to be passed by the 28th. The supplementary measures, I should say, need to be passed by the 28th. It seems that they cannot have the 4-month usual liberal leadership race. So it's going to be a truncated type thing, which bolsters my case for maybe having a longer election period so that the new leader has more time to be seen and Polyev has more time to show that he actually doesn't have answers for things and actually trip up a couple of times and actually be asked about stuff, because during an election, you can't help but have to cover per somebody. And the cameras are on 24/7. Whereas right now, we seem to have a situation where the leader of the opposition got what he wanted.
And now he's
That
upset
Trudeau
about
would
it.
never be prime minister again. Not only are they all upset, but he does not seem to be available to speak to anybody
He's still
live
on vacation.
and in person.
He's on vacation still.
He might be. I mean,
No,
he
that
showed
was
up.
listed. His itinerary said he's on vacation.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, because he came back in time to spend some time at Temple with Melissa Landsman somewhere in between there when we were
Synagogue.
wondering where he went for Christmas. To synagogue. Yes. But the biggest political news in Canada since the last election, and he can only talk at us, not with us or to us, at us via video, no questions. And yesterday, he sends out Andrew Scheer. Let me rephrase that. Once already rejected by the Canadian public as Prime Minister material, Andrew Scheer allegedly still working off his debt for the minivan and tuition, because, why else would you agree to do what it is that he did and then go out and... Here's the question. If this guy is auditioning for leader of a G7 nation and can't manage to find the way to take questions live, to address the nation live and in person, and take questions live and in person for something he so badly wanted and so desperately engineered to make happen. Is this a guy that's going to stand up for Canada?
Hell no.
Is this a guy that is going to stand up to a president of the United States who doesn't care in any way, shape, or form about rules or conventions or protocols or process?
Illegally, he can't even
niceties.
enter the country because he's a convicted felon.
Well, as of January 10th, anyway.
Well, and also Elon Musk, even though
Elon
he
Trump is right.
even though he has Canadian citizenship, he hasn't paid child support, so he can't cross the border either. So I think that's why they want to annex us, so they can both come here.
Could be.
Also, the reason they want Greenland and they want Canada is all of our minerals and oil and water, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know?
Exactly. Right. So I'm not. Let me put it this way: on the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the entire media, legacy and otherwise, were all over the country going, "Where the hell is the Prime Minister? This is a big day. This is a big day." Where in the world is Pierre Poilievre right now? Yesterday, the president-elect said some words that are concerning. Where in the world is the allegedly inevitable next Prime Minister of Canada? And why is he not talking with us? Why is he not live and in person? Why is there no proof of life? And why is he not taking media questions? On 2 consecutive days, where 2 very, very big things happened, he is nowhere to be found. I do not understand it, and nobody is asking questions, which is extremely strange. And again, we are talking about the mouth that never shuts up. A man that would attend the opening of an envelope.
Oh, yes.
And suddenly, he's already in the lead for this year's Vanishing Dream Award. Where is he? Doug Ford's all over the news. Danielle Smith is all over the news. Where's he? It is really, really interesting. You purport yourself to be a leader. How wimpy and weak are you that you cannot manage to belly up to a camera and a microphone when everybody knows how much you love those 2 things? And not make the sound of your voice heard, which is about the only thing that you like more than those 2 things. When there is the biggest news of the year. He did take time to tweet, though.
Oh, yes.
Quote, Canada will never be the 51st state, period. We are a great and independent country. Oh, yes, we're a great and independent country now. The guy who's been spending the last 2 years telling us that Canada's shit is broken and there's absolutely nothing to be proud of here. All of a sudden, we're a great and independent country. Since when, buddy? Since when have you believed that? I'm sorry, I do not buy that coming from you. That whiplash you feel, that's bullshit. We are best friends to the United States. Cut that off. Knock it off. Nations do not have friends. Doug Ford, we are not family. I know you see yourself as the governor of the great state of Etobicoke. We are not family. There is no Fortress Can-Am, Gretchen. Stop trying to make it happen. There is only Canada. Nations have interests. They don't have friends. They don't have family members. They have interests. Cut it out with that crap. Especially when you're talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not have friends. There's only one star in Donald Trump's sky, and that's Donald Trump. Stop it. This folks, we're best friends. It's not.
No.
Doesn't matter. Stop it. Every time you're out there saying, oh my God, we're friends. It's like, you sound like the person that the other person is just not that into, acting like a stage 5 clinger. Why doesn't he love me? It's like, he's not interested in making friends. Jeez, we spent billions of dollars and hundreds of lives helping Americans retaliate against Al Qaeda's 9/11 attacks. Have you seen how Trump speaks about soldiers in the U.S.? He don't care. We supply the U.S. with billions of dollars of high quality and totally reliable energy well below market prices. Yeah, he might care about that. We buy hundreds of billions of dollars of American goods. He might not care about that, but governors of states might care about that, and senators might care about that, and certain people in the House that want to get reelected might care about that. Then he goes on, our weak and pathetic NDP liberal government has failed to make these obvious points. No. Again, buddy, you think that we're working in a world with logic and reason with this guy.
We're not.
Doesn't matter how many times you make the points. Doesn't matter how good the points are. That's freaking irrelevant, you dumbass.
We're not dealing with a rational, sane human being here.
Like,
because he isn't.
The NDP liberal government has failed to make these obvious points, he says. How do you think we got Trump to the point that he's saying that Chrystia Freeland was tough, he doesn't like her, and then just a few weeks ago when she did that thing to Justin Trudeau, oh, glad she's gone, she was toxic.
Yeah.
Trump thought enough of Trudeau to think he'd make a great governor of the 51st state. He thought enough of Freeland to call her toxic and tough. When asked yesterday about what Pierre Poilievre would say, he says, oh, well, maybe he won't win. Maybe he win. I don't care what he says. Brushed him off like the back of his hand. Who do you think is best to stand up to Trump? The guy who can't show up for a camera when he threatens us?
The questions gives us a canned, taped response.
It's like, he's not the guy. I will fight for Canada. Dude.
You've been telling us we're broken for the last 2 years.
You can't even show up for a camera. Right now, the last 2 days, as the Prime Minister steps aside and as crumpled thin skin next to the south of us, talks about economic annexation. You will fight for Canada. How about yesterday or the day before? Because we don't know where the fuck you are. You cannot post a tweet saying, I will fight for Canada while you are invisible. It's like, what? Are you in India waiting for your next orders? We don't know.
We don't know where he is, but he is on vacation.
And the guy who complained about just a couple of days ago, Trudeau not leaving the Taylor Swift concert because Montreal was burning. Upon getting news of potential or desire for economic annexation, we're not asking them to come back to Ottawa to make a statement. Just step in front of your camera in front of your phone. We know you know how to use it. We've seen your weird little fingers pointing at us enough. Jeez. When I am Prime Minister, okay, we will rebuild our military and take back control of the border to secure both Canada and the U.S. We will take back control of our Arctic to keep Russia and China out. These are all current policies of the current government. Well, and they actually have plans to do that, whereas you just say you will, but you say a lot of things that you will, and you don't particularly follow through.
The final paragraph is the one that kills me in that tweet. I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to beef up the border and you're going to do this and you're going to do this, but he says, we will axe taxes, slash red tape, and rapidly greenlight massive resource projects to bring home paychecks and production to our country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you slash and burn and cut taxes while also simultaneously beefing up the military and security at the border? How do you do that? Oh, I know how. You cut all social programs. Dental care, pharmacare, child care, the school lunch program. Goodbye. OAS, CPP, say sayonara to that one because they ain't sticking around. He'll cut all of that to give you a powerful paycheck.
Yeah, I agree. So, And then, of course, ends it with, in other words, we will put Canada first. When are you going to start, buddy? It's like, you can't even put Canada, you can't even interrupt your vacation.
That's right.
To put Canada first over the last 2 days. You gave us Scheer. Dude. Yes. And then all the conservative pundits, I saw this like Power and Politics thing where they got the Conservative Party pundit like that. Now they're mad that Justin Trudeau left at this time, making us vulnerable at this particular time. It's like you want a whole election.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Trudeau, by doing what he did, the way that he did, ensured that we have a stable, functioning government during this transition period. Because as a gentleman named Errol Mendez, who's a professor of constitutional law at University of Ottawa, also reminded us on Power and Politics the other day, prorogation means that Parliament is suspended. It does not mean that government is suspended, and it does not mean that our public service is suspended. So if you're waiting for checks, like they're supposed to come in, they will come in. And if there is something going on in the world, we still do have a government to respond. We still do have a prime minister. That's one of the beauties of the Westminster political system. Again, like I said, the Governor General ensures continuity of government. There is always a government in place. And while some people may look at it, oh, well, he's a lame duck, doesn't matter. In our system, the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister until he, she, or they are not.
Correct.
And then we have another prime minister. And if you're wondering, oh, well, those can believe, just look at the UK, because we just saw it. They went through how many, 5 or 6 of them? And yeah, it was messy and it was ugly and people laughed at them in public, stuff like that. But they refound stability because that's the beauty of our system. So they would rather go into an election when we move into caretaker mode, as this is happening, rather than have an active government in place. But they are saying in the same breath, it's Justin Trudeau's fault for putting in such a vulnerable position by resigning right now, just as the new...
He's not going anywhere yet. This is what they
turning
just,
around
again, they're just making shit up.
I know. We have a leaderless country. No, we don't.
No, we don't. He's still there. He doesn't leave until they selected a new leader.
It's like he leaves, and then it's not like the United States where there's like this 3 month between the election and whatnot period. Yeah. It's like you're gone. It's like it's the prime minister has resigned. Long live the prime minister, right? Like the next one. I mean, come on, people. Like we need to calm down. So there's a lot of people trying to fill your head with that stuff. But all of this, right, is a diversion. You're looking at the guy south of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is he interested in Panama and Greenland and Canada all of a sudden? Well, turns out that the maggots haven't figured it out yet, but he's admitting that climate change is real.
Yes.
Panama, shipping route.
Mm-hmm.
Greenland, shipping route. Northern Canada, Arctic Canada,
just mention that
shipping routes. Yes.
All these ships sailing around Greenland.
Yes. And you know who else wants that? Putin.
Oh, yes, of course.
Putin wants access to those. So he's doing exactly what Putin wants him. It's no coincidence that all of a sudden it's Canada, Panama, and Greenland. And Pierre Poilievre says he will stand up to the guy when he can't even show up. Well, can't interrupt his vacation long enough to turn on his phone to say Canada will never be the 51st state period with his own damn voice. We don't even know if he wrote this or dictated this because Twitter accounts are often run by staffers.
Correct.
Like, come on. Especially in this whole alpha male hypermasculine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the guy. They're even photoshopping biceps into him. making him wear a girdle so he looks like he has got a flat stomach. He calls other people weak and pathetic. What is more weak and pathetic than going into hiding?
Well, he's completely hiding because I can't find anything on him. And if you go to the Conservative website, this is what you see: events. There are currently no planned events. Please check back in for more information at a later date. I can't even find his itinerary.
I know. The Prime Minister of the country announces that he is stepping aside as leader of his party, and will not be seeking re-election, therefore announcing to the nation that come what may, there will be a new Prime Minister of Canada. And the guy that's been actively campaigning for the last 2 years saying, hey, Canada, I'm your inevitable next Prime Minister of Canada, goes into hiding. The president-elect of the most powerful nation on the earth turns around and says, well, maybe not by military, but let's have some economic annexation. And the guy is nowhere to be found. But he's the buff, strong guy who's going to... He's the leadership that we've not been having because we've been in such a dark period. That's what he said in his video when he started that video with that weird music in the back, which Mr. Grizzly told me before the show we got dinged for because he used music for which he did not pay for.
Yeah, it wasn't copyrighted, apparently. All right. Yeah. So I've got an interesting article here. And because it's on a different browser, I can't, for some reason, I can't seem to blow it up. But I will, let's see if I can do something here about this. No, it's not letting me blow it. I don't know. I don't use the Safari browser. I use the Chrome browser, but I have an ad blocker, so it won't let me show this page on that one. So I'm going to show you what I can here. I think this is really interesting. This came out at 6 minutes to midnight last night. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hang on. Let me get you the right tab. This one. Oh, where did it go? Oh, shit. Hang on. My bad. I have to find it here. Give me a second. But it's very fascinating. Let's see. Window. There it is. Now I'll share it. There's no sound, so I'll just share the window here. Pierre Poilievre, all about family, wife, and children of Justin Trudeau's arch rival and possible next PM of Canada. Okay, sure. What newspaper is this? Oh, yeah. Shit!
The Times of India.
Oh,
again, he sure does seem to need a lot of help.
You think?
Yeah. So, since you mentioned the Prime Minister's response, because to what was said yesterday, I just want to point out a little something. Prime Minister responded, and Mr. Grizzly, if you have it handy, I'll let you read it since you loved it so much.
Oh,
it'll sound better in your voice.
1 second here till I find. I've got so many of them listed. All right, here we go. So this is the Prime Minister's response. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Okay. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading security partner. That line, though, there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. That's kicking ass and taking names is what that is.
Dark Justin just entered the room.
Yes.
I would like to point out, kids and cubs, that the timestamp on that tweet from the Prime Minister is at 2:26 p.m. And I would like to note that the timestamp
12:26 p.m. from PM Justin Trudeau.
Yes. The one from
Pierre Poilievre.
2:08
p.m.
Is a little later. That 2:08 p.m. Yeah. So I think we might be on a different time zone thing. But yes, about 2 hours later. So I have the feeling that someone was enjoying their vacation and then heard and says, "Oh, I need to be saying something and then came out. So again, the guy who's the leader was not first out, just like he made the comment about the streets of Montreal burning at 11 something p.m. that night when everything had been quashed way before 7. Again, doing something else that was he found entertaining during those few hours that he couldn't get to a phone quick enough.
Hmm.
But this guy says he's going to lead the nation and stand up. Okay. Sure. Um, and that one last little thing that Pierre noted in his note: when I'm prime minister, we will rebuild our military and take back control of the border and secure both Canada and the US. We will take back control of our Arctic to keep Russian China out. We'll axe our taxes and all that kind of stuff. None of that will be enough to satiate the gaping void of emotional needs south of you. All the things that you promise that you will do, it's not going to be enough. That's not going to be the strategy. Throwing more virgins into the volcano is not going to satisfy the demon god. We will make this obvious point at all, or with more clarity, and we will do all these things, rebuild our military. Yeah. And he's still going to talk about wanting to economically force you into a union because it's good for ratings. And for him, it distracts from the crap that's going on. Like, for example, the fact that his coming into power this time has been completely shambolic, or the fact that he will actually be sentenced 2 days from now and actually
Yes.
be the first for real convicted felon. In 2 days, it's official. He's got some stuff going on down there from which he needs to distract, or the fact that he said that he won't really be able to do anything about the price of eggs, and neither will you, Pierre.
No, unless you nationalize the grocery chains. But that wouldn't that be less freedom?
So
I mean, they talk in so many circles.
I
It's
know,
double speak. It's flip
I know.
flop. It's
And here's the thing: what I say about them, right? Up until now, he's been able to take every little issue
Mhm,
in isolation,
mhm.
right? On car theft, I will do this. On homelessness, I will do this. At some point, when he's going to come into an election, he's going to have to say all these things at the same time. And then people are going to realize that these things don't go together, or that one of his policies actually literally works against the other. And then all these beautiful things that he's been saying. That's why he deals with one topic at a time and makes a 15-minute video on that one
Yes.
topic at a time, because he creates the impression that he knows a lot about it and he's got all these solutions for it.
He
But
doesn't
it's
have a
like,
solution
um,
for anything.
if you take his solution, for example, for the opioid crisis, and mix it with his solution for the housing crisis, and mix it with his desire to cut all social programs, you've got a whole brand new set of really terrible problems, and none of the first 3 are solved. Along the way, you don't get the benefit. It's not like you solve the first 3 and you get a brand new set of problems that you didn't foresee happening as a result, unintended consequences that you have to deal with. It's you get all the unintended consequences, or the intended ones in this case, because the cruelty is the point with these people, and you still keep the 3 original problems, and you spend a lot of money for the bonus. Well, he's telling you that money's keeping rich people even richer. He's the one that actually has the plan to do that, because he doesn't believe that we're worth the money being spent on us. He said it during COVID. It wasn't worth the money to keep us alive. It wasn't worth the money to keep us in our homes. We all should have just personally taken up those costs and all had these big major personal bankruptcies and all lost our homes and our life savings and our businesses because we weren't worth it. Government
Mhm.
spent too much on us.
Well, his response to that is just to give people a tax cut.
Okay. And what about people that don't make enough to pay enough taxes? I mean, and even if you pay a lot of taxes, like, again, I am not rich, but I'm living rather comfortably.
Mhm.
for someone who doesn't have a lot of needs. But I'm living rather comfortably. 'Cause the amount of taxes I pay in a year would cover my mortgage for what, 3 or 4 months?
Mm.
And then what? Even if you cut my taxes down to 0. Well, maybe not. Sorry, that's not true. That's how much I pay my income tax. So maybe, yeah, maybe a year,
Okay.
because it's the whole tax. It's not just what I pay when I file my income tax, the extra I have to hand out. Um, like, this is not, I mean, and if you're gonna cut everybody's taxes down to 0, then just give them a UBI. You're foregoing the money one way or the other. It's like, just, I mean, right? So I'm watching this guy go, and I say, the message that I'm getting from Pierre over the past 2 days is nothing screams, quote, "I'm really not ready for prime time," like getting the thing you wanted, a future without Justin Trudeau as the prime minister, and being the only, skippy air quotes, leader of the big
Mhm.
four parties in the House not able or willing to address Canadians live and in real time. And nothing screams, "I can't think on my feet and I'm very unable to pivot," like still calling for a carbon tax election after a guy who brought in the carbon pricing states he'll no longer be PM after the next election, and the entire nation is talking tariffs and unwelcome annexation. This is the job, man.
Mhm.
This is the job. If you need to go into hiding for 2 or 3 days every time the national or global events throw you a curveball for which you had not yet fully planned and scripted something, we are going to be so screwed under you if you're leading the nation, honey. You're not ready. You can't think on your feet. You can't work without a script. You can't pivot. You're not the guy. And there's a good chance that one of the reasons you're so mad that Justin Trudeau is leaving is because now you have to pivot and show you can think on your feet. And it's probably not going to work. And you prepared for a carbon tax election. And given what Trump said yesterday, you're probably not only going to get who's best to deal with Trump election, but you're probably going to get a who's best for our national security election. Because a guy down south of us saying, "Hey, how about forced economic annexation?" It's a national security issue. And it just happens to be that you can't, or is it won't or can't get your top secret level security clearance. And you may ironically be getting a national security election now. Yeah, I see why you got a couple of loaves of bricks in your pants right now, buddy. Your future's not looking so bright. Doug Ford is out there doing what he does. Daniel Smith's out there doing what she does. Uh, you'll notice also, by the way, Kits and Cubs, Danielle Smith also put out a statement yesterday. Um, and her statement was particularly telling by what it is that she chose not to explicitly say in it, um, which was really um, interesting. But she said, posted on the tweet, Canada is a strong independent nation with the ninth largest economy in the world, and our southern neighbor benefits from this economic strength. We are the United States' best customer. We buy more products and services from the US than any other single nation, and more than Germany, UK, France, Italy, and Vietnam combined. We can strengthen our partnership even further in the coming years by securing our shared border and fighting unfair Chinese trade practices that harm workers in both of our countries. I will continue to share with Americans the economic story Alberta has to tell, and that's why I will be in Washington during the inauguration. That last little bit is what really matters because Danielle Smith, who was so proud of scoring 2 tickets to the inaugural ball, suddenly has 2 things that I think she still thinks are assets. But they're rather big liabilities right now, Danielle. The president of the president-elect, whose inaugural ball you're going to, and you're spending 6 days in the States on the taxpayer's dime, by the way, to do that. I'm sure Albertans will love that. Just said that he was interested in economic annexation. And one of the things that I'm sure he has his eye on is your oil, which you already took off the table, you said, in terms of using for retaliatory tariffs, because Trump said we don't need anything from Canada, but the number one U.S. import from Canada is our oil, and I'm pretty sure that they might need that for a while yet. I mean, I'm sure they could again all go more green, which is something else you're not doing, and get themselves into a situation eventually where they wouldn't need it, but right now they would. But you're still going to that inauguration ball because you're still looking for a pat on the head from the guy who said he would like to bring us into the United States using economic force. But you're still talking like you can deal with him. And I noticed that nowhere in there do you actually say his name. I'm hearing Beyonce again. Say my name, say my name. And I also notice that nowhere in that statement is there nothing about so long as you're around, Canada will never become a 51st state. As Max Fawcett pointed out, rather deftly, quote, she knows she can't call out Trump by name because it will upset her supporters. Mm-hmm. 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 Or maybe she so wants to be the belle of his ball that she's already decided that she's going to say yes to anything. This is not normal behavior. The leader of Alberta, on a day when the president-elect of the United States muses aloud about forced economic annexation, should be saying something different than, let's work together. Maybe. Perhaps. Doesn't strike me as a good look. Okay. Moving on. Let me just put it this way. She's not putting either province or country over party, and unlike many party leaders, by not making an explicit statement that Canada would never be a 51st state, you cannot conclude anything other than these things are not unintentional. You have to work really hard to avoid making mention of these types of things. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do we happen to have you have the clip ready of the Prime Minister?
I do.
All right. So, getting to the thing that started all the tongues wagging starting Monday was the news that the Prime Minister was going to announce his resignation, which he did. We have the clip for you. Because it goes back and forth between English and French. Not that we don't care about French, comme vous savez, je suis un francophone, un franco-ontarien très fier. But for the purposes of the show, we will stop there. We will comment on what the Prime Minister said up until that point, and then we'll move forward to the next English portion so that we don't have to hear everything double. Because in this case, I listened to the whole thing. He says everything double. However, in the question and answer period, when there's something in French, of course, we will play it for you. Okay, here we go.
Announcing that he will step down as Liberal leader of Canada. Let's listen now to the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
This again. Bon matin. Every morning I've woken up as Prime Minister. I've been inspired by the resilience, the generosity, and the determination of Canadians. It is the driving force of every single day I have the privilege of serving in this office. That is why, since 2015, I've fought for this country, for you to strengthen and grow the middle class, why we rallied to support each other through the pandemic, to advance reconciliation, to defend free trade on this continent, to stand strong with Ukraine and our democracy, and to fight climate change and get our economy ready for the future. We are at a critical moment in the world. Mes chers Canadiens.
Okay. So, as I mentioned yesterday, you could hear the heavy sigh just before he starts to speak. To be expected at a moment like this. Opening statement, pretty standard boilerplate for this kind of occasion, I guess. So let's continue.
I'm trying to. I have to monitor in the background for the next break when he comes back to English. So it's I'm hearing you, him, and my own voice all at the same time. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. to monitor three different things at the same time, but I'm capable of it to a certain degree. So we'll go back to the PM and his statement from just the other day. And just give me a second here.
We are going through a critical time.
My friends, as you all know, I'm a fighter. Every bone in my body has always told me to fight because I care deeply about Canadians. I care deeply about this country, and I will always be motivated by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And the fact is, despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history. That's why this morning I advised the Governor-General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. Mes chers amis, comme vous savez, je suis un fighter.
Okay. So, bringing back the fighter, the boxer analogy, talking about that, which is true, know to be true about him. The other thing, is, as you've heard many commentators say, the Prime Minister role is a job that's hard to get and even harder to leave on one's own accord. So there's a little bit of that going on. Get the impression that full acceptance of the decision to leave may have come relatively late, given that he had spoken to his children only the night before about his decision. So it wasn't like he talked about it like about a week ago, said I decide this, and it was like, moving things to have an orderly transition in place. But it seems that he kind of finally accepted over the last few days. Only it may have been the notice that there was a planned 6 hours set aside for a full-on caucus meeting on Wednesday,
That's
where
today.
I'm pretty sure he would have been told in no uncertain terms, now go, please.
In all likelihood.
In all likelihood.
You got to remember
So
today he flies to D.C. immediately after the caucus meeting for the late President Carter's funeral.
yes. Yeah, indeed. And if you notice the couple of words that you heard in French there, if you speak French, you'll notice that he brought out a little more of his street French
Yeah.
for this.
Went to the gutter for a bit.
Je un fighter. So a little street French to connect.
Franglais.
Well, franglais, but like just, there's. I always say that to myself, right? There's the French that I speak at a job interview. C'est mon français, et je passe un beau petit balai dans la rue. I pass this nice broom to have a nice clean street. Et ensuite, il y a le français que je parle avec mes amis. Ça veut dire. So he's using a more familial French, a more Québécois and less prime ministerial level. More Québécois. I can't even say that, but more Québécois slang, like this, and street level language. So I'm talking to you a lot of the things that people would have liked to have done as prime minister more often. Like talk to us like we're people. Right. All right. The next little bit, Mr. Grizzly.
Yeah, we'll get there in just a second. I just wanted to say, as you're talking about the sort of guttural street French, it reminded me of the day that I went in to get I was parking in the market. You know, the structure, the main parking structure in the Byward Market. And I drive in and the machine up at Fred says, please take your ticket. And in French it says, prenez votre ticket. not ticket.
Yes. Yes.
It's like they can't even get it right. So I had to inject a little bit of humor in there because we're getting to some heavy duty stuff here. So yeah, prenez votre ticket.
Yes. I had a French teacher that was telling me that she went to Paris one time. She was asking for grapefruit. She says, est-ce que vous avez un pamplemousse? Un quoi? Un pamplemousse? Yeah. It's like, quoi? Un pamplemousse. C'est gros, c'est rose. Ah, vous voulez pas un pamplemousse, vous voulez un grapefruit.
Yeah.
And it was like,
hey, j'ai un gros crack dans my windshield.
Un gros crack dans mon windshield.
I don't know how you call it in English, but en français, we say a shock absorber. I've heard that. Literally heard that. And everybody was like, in English, we call that a shock absorber. Ah, même chose. No, not now.
He was a friend was talking me about he wanted to he had another friend that was going to Quebec City and says, can you give me a lift? Right? He goes, quoi? Un lift? Un lift dans ton char, un lift. He goes, tu veux pas un lift? Tu veux une ride? It's like, okay. Next one. I said that, I was like, these are both English words, right? It was a regionalism. Right. It was a regionalism. Apparently, in some parts of Quebec, it's a lift, and in other part, it's a ride that you ask for.
And if you get to the northern shore, northern shore of Quebec along the St. Lawrence, close to Labrador, you'll find that many people in that part of the country are referred to as Cufies because they'll speak English and French with a Newfoundland accent.
Really?
Something else to hear. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like, Jesus, but I'll tell you this now, but say that in French with that accent. I can't do it. I'm incapable of doing it.
I couldn't.
But it's mind-blowing when you hear it. You're like, it's Newfoundland, but it's French. And we're in Quebec. I don't know what's happening.
All right.
If you anyway, we're getting way off topic here, but
yes.
We'll get back to the PM and his words.
All right.
The Liberal Party of Canada is an important institution in the history of our great country and democracy. A new Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do for Canadians. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to questions, starting with Laurence Martin, Radio
Okay,
Canada.
let's cut for now.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Hello, Mr.
So you'll notice the trembling
Mhm.
in his voice on this particular occasion, and then a couple of mentions of things that probably would have been themes for him if he was running in the next election as leader of the Liberal Party. Right. So we will move to the question and answers period, and there's. Like I said, when we went through it yesterday, I mentioned pretty much all the stuff that happened, but just wanted to for you to be able to hear it in his voice. There's a couple of things that are interesting about his answers.
All righty.
You wanted to have an election with Pierre Poilievre as your opponent. There have been internal battles for a while. Why are you giving up now? What made you change your mind? As you know, I don't easily back down faced with a fight, especially a very important one for our party and for the country. But I do this job because the interests of Canadians and the well-being of our democracy is something that I hold dear. And it's become clear to me that I cannot be the leader during the next elections due to internal battles.
As you all know, I am a fighter, and I am not someone who backs away from a fight, particularly when a fight is as important as this one is. But I have always been driven by my love for Canada, by my desire to serve Canadians, and by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election. And it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
Vous êtes au pouvoir depuis près de 10 ans.
You've been in power for nearly 10 years. Canada has changed with your government. If there's one accomplishment that you're the most proud of, I know there are several, but perhaps the thing you are most proud of, and maybe one regret? Answer. In 2015, we were elected on a promise to work for the middle class in this country. And that is what we did. We reduced the level of poverty. We helped families. We created an economy that works for many more people while preparing for the future, a more digital future, and to prepare for a world where climate change will have a greater impact. We've done a lot of work with Canadians, and Canada is better off due to the work that we've all done over the past few years. A regret? I continue to think that if our electoral system had been changed so that people would be able to have a first, second, and third choice on the ballot, parties would have spent more time looking at their points in common to be the second or third choice of voters rather than to see this polarization. But I could not unilaterally change our ballot system.
All right, let's stop there for a second. So you will notice that the answer to the first question, what was the thing that changed your mind, was really a non-answer.
Yeah, I would say so.
He didn't actually point to a single event or thing that changed his mind. And the second one, do you have anything that you're proud of and that you regret? That was a full answer. Now, the answer about proportional representation has, not proportional representation, but electoral reform, set a lot of people off.
Yes,
Can't believe you said that. Yes, you could have. It's like, let's remind, because there's a lot of people revising history right now.
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of people going, if you wanted to do it, you could have. Yes, he could have.
Mhm.
Yes. But in order to achieve it, he would have had to have abused of his parliamentary majority
Mhm.
to override the will of at least 2 of the 5 major parties
Correct.
that represent 36% of the people that had voted in that election.
Funny how everybody conveniently forgets that he wanted to do this from a democratic approach. Everybody gets a vote. Let's all vote on it.
Yes. Now he's saying there's some people turning around and says, "Oh, bullshit. He said he couldn't do it if not everybody." He didn't say he couldn't do it if without the consensus of all the parties. He said he couldn't do it unilaterally.
Correct.
All right. And the fear of him doing it unilaterally is what caused the NDP itself, with some support from the Greens,
Mhm.
to campaign very, very loudly and vociferously and vigorously when the ERRE committee was struck. The Liberals, because they had a majority on that committee. So the Liberals could have had that committee write whatever report the Liberals
Correct.
wanted with dissenting and push through whatever the Liberals wanted. And the New Democrats said, they're absolutely, definitely going to do that. They are going to do that. They're going to use that majority on the committee to push in the system that they want, ranked ballots, and they're going to impose this on all of us against the will of these 4 other parties undemocratically because we, the NDP and the Greens, want proportional representation. We don't even want to discuss anything else. And the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives really want a referendum on whether or not we do that because they want a campaign on scaring us about what moving to proportional representation will look like and get you not to vote for it because every referendum on proportional representation so far in Canada has failed.
Well, I mean, the statement here from Linda M. He would have had to be the dictator they called him to put electoral reform in place. The irony is, they've been calling him a communist dictator. How can you be those two things? That you can't be those two things at the same time. It's one or the other. They've been calling him that for the longest time. They're calling him a fascist. They're calling him all these things. And yet, we don't have electoral reform because he didn't act as a dictator.
Yes, he actually acquiesced to the NDP's demand and gave himself a minority on that committee. Then at no point during the entire process did he make one statement in favor of ranked ballots. He didn't fight for it. That was probably his mistake. He didn't fight for it. He didn't advocate for it or whatnot. He just let the committee take it over. Now, maybe he realized that once he lost the majority on the committee that it was not going to happen because it wasn't.
It's possible.
And just decided not to spend any more capital trying to fight for it. Who knows? Only we'll know that 20, 25 years later when they do a legacy book and biography. But right now, we don't know the reason why. But to sit there today and say he could have, or like the NDP said after when he announced that he was giving up on the proposition, oh, well, you should have done it anyway. If he had done it anyway in a manner that would have satisfied the NDP, yes, he would have asked. He would have abused of his majority to unilaterally impose proportional representation on the entire country, but specifically on greater than 1/3 of the country who voted for parties that expressly did not. If you think that we would have had problems, if you think that the US has problems with election legitimacy because there's one party saying the thing is rigged, imagine when you do it, overriding the will of over 1/3 of your nation. You can't do it. The NDP actually campaigned for a long time. Justin Trudeau, you should have been the dictator. We wanted you to change the ERRE committee so that you would not be, in order to give us what we wanted, the reform we wanted as the NDP. We had no problem with you being a dictator if you gave us what we wanted.
It's like,
was their ultimate position.
How do you win with that type of mentality and attitude? How? Because look, you're always going to piss off somebody somewhere, no matter what, right? But he did the right thing. He did the right thing. He's not the dictator they accuse him of. What was it? I saw a comment here from this is a great comment because it really fits from PNC Bio, agreeing with Linda. Exactly. He can't win. He can't do anything because he's a feckless leader. He's also an autocratic strongman dictator.
14
It's like, which
characteristics
is
of
it?
fascism. The leader is both too strong and too weak at the same time.
He's also
Controls the price of oil and too dumb to work a toaster.
and responsible for global inflation and supply chain
Yep.
issues. And
Exactly. Responsible for global inflation, but you got to remind him to put his pants on before debate. Because he's just that dumb.
So there is a very tiny part of me, in the back of my mind that's literally going, oh boy, if Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister, we're going to eviscerate that son of a bitch in 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to eviscerate him all day, every day. I want the media to hammer the living shit out of him the way they did the PM for the last 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because all they've been doing is propping him up for the last 2.
Yeah, exactly. And now that the media doesn't have their target anymore, hopefully their attention will turn.
Well,
maybe. Who knows?
Let's slight pivot to the Torstar article just yesterday on how they praised him for his record over the last 9 years.
Yes.
Citing all of the numbers, the facts and figures, how he grew the economy, how he lifted people out of poverty, how he did this, how he did, how all of it is vastly superior to what the previous government did. And the numbers speak for themselves, and they're all factual, all proven, all verifiable. None of them are made up. And we'll find the article because I have a Torstar account. So I'll find the article and we'll bring it up with you. But in the meantime, shall we get back to his continued Q&A? It's not very long because he only takes a few questions and then,
Yeah.
We got elected in 2015 to fight for the middle class. And that's exactly what we've done over the past years. We reduced their taxes. We increased the benefits to families. We made sure the economy was focused on working for everyone and not just a few. And that has changed. That has dropped poverty rates in Canada. That has brought more people into the workforce. That has moved us forward on reconciliation in a way that has deeply improved the opportunities and success of Canadians despite the incredibly difficult times the world is going through right now. There's lots more work to be done, and I know that this party and this country and Canadians will keep doing it. If I have one regret, particularly as we approach this election, well, there are probably many regrets that I will think of, but I do wish that we'd been able to change the way we elect our governments in this country so that people could simply choose a second choice or a third choice on the same ballot, so that parties would spend more time trying to be people's second or third choices, and people would have been looking for things they have in common instead of trying to polarize and divide Canadians against each other. I think in this time, figuring out how to pull together and find common ground remains something that is really important for democracies. But I could not change unilaterally, without support of other parties, our electoral system. That wouldn't have been responsible.
Prochaine question. Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. Prime Minister, up until 3 weeks ago, you were intending to stay, and it seems that the event 3 weeks ago of Ms. Freeland coming out and saying you were firing her as your finance minister was the catalyst that brought us here today. So can you explain your side of what happened there?
Chrystia has been by my side for close to 10 years now. She has been an incredible political partner through just about everything we have done as a government and as a party over the past decade. I had really hoped that she would agree to continue as my Deputy Prime Minister and take on one of the most important files that not just this government but this country is facing, but she chose otherwise. In regards to what actually happened, I am not someone who's in the habit of sharing private conversations.
All right, so let's if you can move past the French answer on that for the next cue, Mr. Grizzly. But there again, you will notice more in the previous response, more trembling. in his voice about the things that clearly matter to him that he's talking about that he achieved. And as I mentioned yesterday, um, if you looked at the expression of his face and you heard that firmness that the prime minister sometimes gets when he says, like, "This is all I will say about this subject on this."
Yeah,
Now,
there's some more stuff going on that we don't know about clearly, but
yeah,
he's like private conversations must remain that way. I
yeah,
thought, you know,
but you again, there's difference between me saying he said private converses and hearing him say it. When you see him and hear him say it, it's like, ooh, yeah, there's definitely more going on there.
well,
You can spot the
I did
body
say the
language, the
other
tone, the
day,
inflection.
I did say the other day that it was rather magnanimous of him to say that. And you know what? I applied that term incorrectly. It would be magnanimous if she said it to him,
Hmm.
because magnanimity has to do with a superior being uh, forgiven, for want of a better term, by a subordinate.
Hmm.
So I applied the term incorrectly. And I know the
Okay.
term, I use it occasionally. I just applied it incorrectly the other day. And I just get, because I'm rather pedantic, and
Yep. Yep.
I'm
Makes
not a
sense.
wordsmith, I'm not a writer, but I do like to get things right.
Yep. So, when this is the comment that I said yesterday, could be great or not great. So this could have been nice, right? I'm choosing not to sully a name. She's been by my side. We've worked on a lot of things together because I offered what I thought was going to be the most important file. She didn't see it that way. She chose otherwise. Okay.
Indeed.
That could also be, however, if the intent of Chrystia Freeland's move was to break from Justin Trudeau, because the error that the Democrats made is that Kamala Harris did not repudiate the Joe Biden legacy enough. That's the hypothesis at play. So, if one of my possible theories that Chrystia take a shot, you know, like this be the one that took me down and then run on that, could be, but it could also be saying that she was by my side for everything for the last 10 years can also be interpreted as tying her to him.
Hmm.
So if he is unhappy with the move, I offered her this, but she chose otherwise, is a passive aggressive statement rather than a discretionary statement. And we don't
Well,
know,
and
we're not in his head, but as a communications person, my training is to look at these at all the possible ways it could be interpreted. This could be as, oh yeah, you stuck the shiv into me to get some distance, eh? Well, let me leave you with a parting gift too. She was
he
by
knows
my
how to
side
play
for
that game.
everything because she was my most trusted ally.
Hmm.
Because I offered her something, but she chose otherwise.
Well, and what the bio says, the one point of her move, what's the distance? It was to distance herself from Trudeau, and he just pulled her so close.
So that's what I mean. It could be praise, but all the wording and everything could lead one to have the complete other interpretation as well. So if I was a conservative, I'd be looking at that and going, see, he just tried. I'd be playing that too. Yes. And if I was a gracious new Democrat like Miss Zagota, I would say it's so nice because apparently, like about the only thing Chrystia Freeland said publicly about him had something to do with oh God, uh, my time serving under him was good or something like that, and I wish him and his family well. Or something.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I thank Justin Trudeau for his years of service to Canada and Canadians. I wish him and his family the very best. Which again seems like a very nice statement, but it's literally the least one can say. As well, thank you for your service to Canada and Canadians. I wish you and your family the very best. After 10 years.
Yeah, that's it. Little harsh.
Terse.
Cold.
Terse and sparse.
Terse is a very good. Terse.
Curt. So again, maybe there's nothing more to read into that. Could just be, listen, this is the only thing that's safe to say at this time. Volunteering any more in any other way? I mean, because we know she can. We know how she wrote that resignation letter. She's very good at using words and placing them to say, ooh, okay, yeah, I know what she's saying here. Between the lines. Some person commented once that her resignation letter was very British, given that she worked at the London Financial Times, and she's seen a lot of resignation letters, and it seems that in the UK, a lot of the resignations are not bombastic, but they're like that with these little choices of words and fine sentence structure that just like, little cut, little snip, little right there. So, like I said, whatever you think of these statements, because if people are running with them in a way that you don't particularly appreciate, just know that yes, they are filling in the blanks with what they need to be true for their narrative to work. Yes, but the statements were also both made in a way that they could very much be interpreted either way. Nobody took much care to be very clear. So if it's happening, it's their own damn fault on this one.
Well,
if you can't take an extra 5 seconds for clarity, again, I have a hard time believing that in this particular instance where everybody's measuring every word, that was not unintentional.
Well, shall we continue, sir?
Let's continue.
Institution and the internal battles right now, but I'm wondering if you feel that another leader will have more success than you will at beating Pierre Poilievre in the next campaign.
Pierre Poilievre's vision for this country is not the right one for Canadians. Stopping the fight against climate change doesn't make sense. Backing off on the values and strength in diversity that Canada has always worked to pull itself together on is not the right path for the country. Attacking journalists, the CBC institutions, that's not what Canadians need in this moment. We need an ambitious, optimistic view of the future, and Pierre Poilievre is not offering that. And I look forward to the fight as progressives across this country stand up for the kind of vision for a better country that Canadians have always carried, despite the tremendous pressures around the world to think smaller, to veer towards the hard right, and to be less ambitious for what we can be and do as a country when the world really needs Canada.
That's not an answer, though. Yes or no? Is there another leader that could beat him?
Absolutely.
Sur le leader?
Oui.
Okay.
Est-ce que vous...
So just as we're talking about clarification, it's like, yes, absolutely. So about the leader being able to take on Pierre Poilievre, or about it's like, no. So again, but again, trembling in the voice there, and again, a sense of what would have been his campaign if he would be running in that statement there. But absolute confidence that there is someone in the part, and there is. There's plenty. The one thing that the Liberals fortunately have is a lot of bench depth. So in terms of quality players, there's no doubt there. I don't know if there's another one after that, Mr. Grizzly.
There is. There's one more. I think
there's one more question. I think.
One more. It's en français, but we get the English translation, so it's fine.
Okay.
Canadians. Hélène Buzettier. Hello, Mr. Trudeau. 16 years ago, in December 2008, Stephen Harper prorogued Parliament to avoid a vote of non-confidence that he knew that he would lose because the three opposition parties would vote against him. It's the exact same situation that you find yourself in today. Stéphane Dion at the time had said, and I quote, that this was an an affront to democracy. I'd like to know why what was bad for Conservatives of Stephen Harper should be good for the Liberals of Justin Trudeau. The Governor General in 2008 had concluded, and correctly so, that the House had given formal confidence to Mr. Harper's government, despite a signed letter. This was a political document at the time. The voice of the House counts. So, before stopping the work at the House over the holidays, we won 3 non-confidence votes. And so we're going to have to test the confidence of the House as of March to adopt the necessary budgetary credit so that the government can continue to function.
All right.
Okay, so I didn't know he did it in English as well.
Yeah.
It's just
And I think, and then he's got one last question after this one, because I remember those were the 2 questions I highlighted yesterday. So there you have an issue of process. Here, my answer would have been in this one also to point out the fact that when Prime Minister Harper did that in one of the times mentioned, he did that to avoid a confidence vote, which she said was the exact same situation, except in calling for the prorogation, Mr. Harper did not step aside as leader. He stayed, ran again, and was rewarded for proroguing the House to do that with a majority. So not exactly the same thing, but giving a civics lesson in that the Governor General of the day had understood that there was a confidence vote that had just been taken and the Conservatives won it. And that was the last time that the House had spoken, even though there was a letter from the group that was saying, like, we're willing to take over from him, Governor General, if you say instead of having to go into an election, we can just keep Parliament running because opposition parties can form some type of group that can hold the confidence of the House, and an election is therefore not necessary. The letter didn't matter. It was the voice in the House. And this time around, this Prime Minister is under the same situation. The voice in the House, last time it was asked whether or not confidence existed in the government, the House said yes. So the Governor General made the same correct decision in 2024 as she made when Stephen Harper asked. The difference is that this Prime Minister is not doing it to prolong his own time as Prime Minister, or to set the ground for prolonging it through. If he's prolonging it by staying until the end of the leadership race, yes, but not prolonging his term as Prime Minister as in being a viable candidate as leader of his party, which if he won the election by convention, he would become the Prime Minister.
The circumstances are vastly different.
Vastly.
There's a new president who is unhinged,
as well,
to say the least. He's going to be sworn in just a couple of weeks. We don't know what he's going to do. He said he wants to take over Canada and Greenland and Panama. He wants to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Like, I mean...
You got my Ellen Fox in the chat here going, the Arctic Council will shut this. I'm taking Greenland, slowing this down. I'm not losing sleep on this one. I mean, there's 7 or 8 countries. I think China is one of them.
Correct.
Norway is another one. This is not...
it's not going to happen. The European Union's already come out and said it's not happening. We're not letting it happen. He also said something that he wants NATO countries to spend 5% of their GDP on defense spending. 5%, that's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And his last question, Mr. Grizzly, if you happen to have it.
I have his response on Anglais. I can't remember what the question was, but we'll just go with this.
The parliamentary press gallery, and anyone who's been watching politics closely over the past months will know that Parliament has been entirely seized by obstruction and filibustering and a total lack of productivity over the past few months. We are right now the longest serving minority government in history, and it's time for a reset. It's time for the temperature to come down, for the people to have a fresh start in Parliament, to be able to navigate through these complex times, both domestically and internationally. And the reset that we have is actually two parts. One is the prorogation, but the other part is recognizing that removing me from the equation as the leader who will fight the next election for the Liberal Party should also decrease the level of polarization that we're seeing right now in the House and in Canadian politics, and allow people to actually focus on serving Canadians in this House and with their work the way Canadians deserve.
On va prendre une dernière question.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Stephanie Taylor with the National Post. Given, as you just said, there's going to be confidence votes in March, opposition parties have said they are prepared to bring down your government. What kind of chances do you think you are leaving to your successor, given that there will only be mere weeks for them to introduce themselves to Canadians before heading into an election, potentially?
I have a tremendous amount of confidence in both Canadians and in parliamentarians' interest in serving Canadians in the right way. We're in a minority government right now, and there hasn't been an active leadership in a minority government in more than 50 years in this country. And there is always going to be the challenge of having a leadership race while a parliament would face confidence votes in the course of delivering supply to the government. So this is something that we're going to navigate through, but I truly feel that removing the contention around my own continued leadership is an opportunity to bring the temperature down, have a government that will focus on the complex issues that are coming forward in the coming months, while the party gets to have a full national process that brings in people from right across the country and makes a determination about the best person to carry the progressive Liberal standard into the next election.
Can you clarify whether ministers who would like to campaign for your job will have to step out of cabinet? And how can the Liberal government be in a position to protect Canadian businesses and Canadians from the threat of tariffs from incoming President Donald Trump when members of the government are going to be focused on who's going to be taking your job?
The government will still, and the cabinet will still be very much focused on doing the job that Canadians elected us to do in 2021, which is fight for their interests, stand up for their well-being, and make sure that they are good and that Canadians are protected and strong. There will be a leadership process, and the rules will unfold over the coming weeks. But I can assure you that the tools and the need to stand up for Canadians, to protect Canadians in their interests and continue to fight for the economy is something that everyone in this government will be singularly focused on.
Okay. So again, just some closing statements. Again, some a little bit of civic stuff and a little bit of organizational stuff here.
And that was his last. He just responded.
Yeah, exactly, in French. So that was the last question, and then he, of course, stepped away. Now, once, as I mentioned yesterday, according to the Constitution of the Liberal Party of Canada, once a leader makes it known that he intends to step aside, the National Executive must meet within 27 days to set the terms of the Leadership Convention, and then candidates must have their paperwork filed at least 90 days prior to the vote. The president of the executive of the party mentioned that they would be getting together today, Wednesday, to start those discussions about the rules and the terms. So that's why you have certain candidates. Most candidates are aspirants that people think are on the list are saying that they are considering at the moment, not saying yes or no. The only exception to that rule has been a former Liberal MP who is not currently named, Frank Bayliss, who's a businessman out of Montreal. He's already said, yeah, come with me, I'm entering. But yeah, everybody else is still waiting for conditions on that. Now, when you put those things together, that's 117 days, which would be considered too long, which would bring us past March 28th, the date that the supplementary measures need to be passed, if they are going to be passed. So, fortunately, these rules can be changed by a 3/4 vote of the national executive, and it seems that that's what they are going to do in order to be able to have the truncated leadership race, because normally the leadership races are about 4 months long at a minimum. Of the people, of all the names that you might have been hearing with this, Christy Clark, former premier of British Columbia, who issued a holiday message in French, by the way, and is reported to be traveling with her French tutor and has been placing a lot of calls, some of them with her French tutor at her side, so that she can make sure that she can get what she wants to say correctly. So it seems she's making a push for Quebec. Then we have Chrystia Freeland, who has also been reported to have been placing many phone calls to other members of the Liberal Party pretty much since the day she resigned. Mark Carney is also reported to have been placing many phone calls. He's recently appeared in the press saying that he is considering it. And I came out and said, you know, buddy, you got a really short leash on the considering it stuff, because you've been doing this will he, won't he dance for so long now that you got, and at first I was like, epic fail. You should have been saying you're in or you're out. And I'm saying, okay, well, wait a minute. The rules are not out yet. So, okay, I will grant you a little leeway. But once those rules are out, man, if you are asked point blank, you have very short amount of time to say definitely yes, I'm in, or absolutely no, I am out. Because this has been about you indirectly for far too long, buddy. It's like you got a very short margin of playing coy and batting your eyelashes, going, "Oh, I don't know." So hopefully you will have an answer by the time the executive makes a decision about the rules. Then we have Mélanie Joly, who apparently is very organized already. Reports are that her campaign has sort of gone dark the last little bit. Now, I don't know if it's just because she's so prepared and organized already that she can afford to look like she's above the fray by not making too much noise during this particular period, or whether or not the way that this is done and all the players means that maybe she's reconsidering. But apparently she's been at it. And if you are wondering about her capabilities, just remember that Mélanie Joly was pretty much an unknown who ran for the mayor of Montreal position, impressed so much that she finished third and jumped from there to federal politics, and eventually became the foreign affairs minister, when everybody was joking when she was named to foreign affairs minister because apparently she didn't have the stuff. Well, she kind of proved them wrong. So she's a particularly effective organizer and has been, and I'm not saying this in the negative way that usually people associate with women when they say this word, it was the word ambitious. Appropriately ambitious, because apparently she seems to have the stuff. So why would she not aspire? Why would she not have ambitions? It's not an insult. When you say it about a man, apparently it's a quality. When you say it about a woman, supposedly it's underhanded. She's ambitious, and she should be. She can walk her talk. Then we have François-Philippe Champagne, who there was some word on the tweet that he was considering not running more than running at this juncture, but just saw an interview with him on Power and Politics, one-on-one. This where he too he's at the considering it phase because the rules are not out, but it looks pretty good because when they were asking certain questions, he seemed to have the elements of a policy platform ready to go in that interview. Anita Anand being talked about as well. One name that I hoped would be talked about and wasn't being talked about for a while, but it seems he might be interested, is Jonathan Wilkinson, our current Minister of Natural Resources, formerly our Minister of not environment, but somewhere in there. But he's really a green tech guy, and very respected from everywhere. And one of these people, all the time that he's been government, nothing remotely close to a scandal, nothing remotely close to him stepping out of line and saying a bad word. Seems to be reflect before he speaks in full sentences, and actually addresses points. So he's particularly effective, but he's not flashy in any way, shape, or form. So people who would like a nice, boring, but extremely competent and knowledgeable person, you'd be looking to Jonathan Wilkinson. He's your guy. He's one of the stars of the Trudeau cabinet, and he doesn't get a lot of credit whatsoever because a lot of stuff that he does is behind the scenes. But I mean, if you can be the Minister of Natural Resources in Canada and have Danielle Smith still screaming at Stephen Guilbeault rather than you, you're doing a pretty damn good job, because she never mentions his name at all. She also knows he would eat her for lunch on facts and that type of stuff, because he comes from the green tech industry. So he knows what he's talking about. There are probably more names that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but you've got a lot of people. They're talking about like between 7 and 12 different names keep getting floated around. Now, the party executive, if they make the number of signatures you need to get, or the money you need to put up to run significantly high, that may weed a few of those out before it even starts. But that's where things are with regards to that. Do you have anything on this portion, Mr. Grizzly?
Well, I'm trying to find, and I'm having a difficult time trying to find the Torstar article.
Oh, I have it.
Do you? Okay, because I don't know where the hell it went. I had bookmarked it, but I can't find it anywhere.
The title of it is "Under Trudeau, Canadians Are Better Off Than We Were in 2025."
Yeah, and I can't. I had it queued up, and it seemed to have disappeared.
Oh, they changed the title. That's
that
why.
Might be why.
In an update. It's now called Opinions. Say what you want about Justin Trudeau. There's still no arguing Canadians became wealthier while he was in power. And this is by David Olive, who's the Star Business columnist. And I'll go to the back end of the column, because they usually have a little bio thing. No, they do not in this case. So it just says David Olive is a Toronto-based business columnist for the Star. Justin Trudeau, who announced his resignation as federal Liberal Party leader Monday, making way for a party leadership race and a new prime minister, began his premiership by promising sunny ways for Canada. At first glance, Trudeau would appear to have fallen short of that goal. Quite the opposite is true, however. We'll get to that. Canada is beset with cost of living and housing crises, and it faces a stall in economic growth from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's threatened steep tariffs on imported Canadian goods. Trudeau's exuberant optimism on taking office November 4th, 2015 proved no match for the cascade of unforeseeable misfortunes to follow. Price inflation alone shortened the political careers of Kamala Harris, Britain's Rishi Sunak, and New Zealand's Jacinda Ardern, among others. First came the 2018 trade war with Donald Trump in his earlier presidential term. The inexplicable attack on Canada and America's other trading partners, soon to be repeated, was followed not long after by the world's first genuine pandemic, meaning that it touched the four corners of the world as none before had done. The lockdowns required to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus eroded the public support of almost every leader who imposed them. The global economy was largely shut down for the first time. When the coronavirus danger had passed, it was then suddenly reopened for the first time, unleashing historically high inflation as goods in short supply skyrocketed in price. The only cure for the spiraling inflation was abnormally high interest rates, which zoomed to 5% from 0.25% in what seemed like the blink of an eye. Any one of those health and economic hardships has the potential to wreak permanent damage, and there were moments when it seemed they did. Yet Trudeau's successors will be hard-pressed to improve on his economic track record. In the Trudeau years, the Canadian economy grew by 41% to $3.2 trillion. It grew by just 18% under Trudeau's predecessor, Stephen Harper, who governed for roughly the same amount of time. And this is an important metric to remember, kids and cubs, my editorial edition here, because during that time, everybody talked about when the Conservatives are defending Stephen Harper's poor economic performance during his time as Prime Minister. But he dealt with the 2008 economic crash. Well, our Prime Minister dealt with a global pandemic that was multiple times more serious and devastating
Correct.
than the 2008 economic crash, no matter how devastating that economic crash was. So, and
there's a huge difference.
he's still 41-18,
Hmm.
but we're throwing that away.
Yeah, we're going to throw that out.
We're throwing that away. Yep, indeed.
And if you think, you got to remember, okay, this is the thing people seem to lose sight of. Yes, when the economy is doing good, rich people do good. That's neither here nor there. When the economy is doing good, more Canadians as a whole also do better. Do people fall through the cracks? Damn straight we do. We do. But the better the economy does, the better the country does, the better more Canadians will do. And I guarantee you that whatever a Conservative government does will not be in the interest of the average Canadian, let alone the middle class, let alone the working class or the poor. But the moneyed class, you're going to love this guy because he is going to put a lot more money in your pockets. If you elect a Conservative government, time has proven historically that they do nothing to help the country and the vast majority of her citizens. They do many things to help the wealthy get wealthier. The Conservative Party of Canada, which is just a reform party with a new name, has never been and will never be fiscally responsible. Their track record, historically, proves this statement. And another falsehood and fallacy about the Conservatives, or the Reform Party in this case, is that they beef up the military. That is a load of hogwash. They do not and never have. As a matter of fact, they cut. They cut to veterans. They cut to veteran services. They cut the military spending. They don't give pay rise. They do not help the military. They never have. They have this falsehood, this fallacy, this reality distortion factor that they do, but they never have. You don't believe me? Avro Arrow, Liberal government. CF-18s, Liberal government. Beefing up pay rises, Liberal government. Improving veterans' lives, Liberal government. My father did the numbers the other day. My father, a retired veteran who's 83, told me the other day, he goes, under the Liberal government, they increased my veterans benefit by $200 a month. He goes, do the math. It's $2,400 a year extra in my pocket, and that is tax-free money for veterans, by the way. My father, who has permanent damage to his hip and backs from his work in the military, under the Conservative government, he fought for 10 years to get his settlement. 10 years. And he's not alone in this. So many veterans fought for years to get what was rightfully owed to them. And all they did was delay, deny, and hope that you either gave up or died.
Much like the U.S. medical insurance industry.
Funny how that works. Do you see the contrast there?
And remember, kids and cubs, a lot of people maybe have forgotten that, but back in the day of ABC, what was really
Anything
popular,
but conservative?
it was our veterans who asked us
Correct.
to vote.
Yes.
Anything but conservative. I have a feeling that their minds have probably not changed that much since then.
Everybody likes to think that, again, they've got this falsehood and fallacy that they're going to do things for Canadians. They're not. They're not. They never have.
Never have. So, according to this article, the Canadian economy grew by 41% under Trudeau, just 18% under Harper. Both of them have had similar length terms. Both of them have had one huge major economic disruption happen. Yet, the Liberal performance is 128 times better, 128% better. Sure, not times. Than the Harpers. On the next metric that they have, they're talking about per capita GDP a lot, right? Lately, oh my God, it's decreasing. Well, your per capita income, because we mentioned the point, right? If per capita GDP is decreasing, but that's because GDP, let's say, increases at 2% a year, but your population is increasing at 3%, it is naturally going to decline because you're dividing by more people. But that doesn't mean you're getting paid less. Here's the proof of that. Because per capita income, even though GDP per capita is going down, per capita income grew by more than 23% on Trudeau's watch to $77,000, according to the International Monetary Fund. Trudeau's predecessor managed only a 7.6% increase in his time. So the Trudeau performance is 202.6% better.
That's a big number.
We're throwing that away.
Yeah.
You didn't like that.
Where was the media for the last 9 years? Instead of dumping and shitting on everything he does, where was this report for the last 9 years? Why aren't people aware of what has been done? And again, all the people, I hate him. Why? Well, he's damaged our country. Where? Prove it to me. Show me. Because there's not a metric that can back up your statement. There isn't.
Let's talk about the next metric that they love. Trudeau came to the office with a mandate to engage in deficit spending, and spend he did on both physical and social infrastructure. Right? If it wasn't for Trudeau's reckless inflationary spending, even the one before the pandemic, we wouldn't be in this mess where 2 million people per day are going to food banks because of that damn carbon tax. Well, according to this economist. Yet, Canada's federal debt to GDP ratio increased only modestly to almost 50% in 2023. That's after all the COVID stuff. The latest figures available from 43% in 2015. On that basic measure of fiscal prudence, Canada ranks better than all G7 countries, save traditionally frugal Germany's 45%. In the Trudeau years, America's debt to GDP ratio jumped to 112% from 86%. So we have better interest rates, better inflation rate, and by a few nautical miles, a better debt to GDP ratio. But they want us to become the United States.
Well, here's a great little thing
thank
from
you.
PNC Bio. Our lowest defense spending ever was in 2013, when Harper spent 0.99% of GDP on defense.
Yes. And Harper also, remind you all, screwed our international partners after the 2008 crisis hit. All the countries, the major countries of the world, agreed that they would all spend 2% of GDP on economic stimulus. And Harper was the only one that never reached that target. He promised it to our partners and then never met it.
And here's another statement from PNC Bio. You just mentioned that Germany's fiscally frugal, and they're doing slightly better than us, but it's like they don't understand what fiscal. Germany has a law that they can't overspend.
Mm-hmm.
That law is now crippling their economy. So,
Yep.
Hampering their economy. I don't like to use the word crippling.
Hampering. Yeah, hampering. I like that better. Yep. Then Trudeau invested heavily and widely. When we're talking about all the money he spent about $34 billion to twin the Trans Mountain Pipeline to get Alberta oil to world markets besides the U.S. for the first time. Daniel Smith is crowing about all the money Alberta's making now.
Mm-hmm. Who built the pipeline again?
Wasn't a conservative.
Nope.
Just say that.
Which prime minister invested more money into the province of Alberta than any prime minister before?
The current one.
The current one.
The
Correct.
current one. Yes.
They hate him in Alberta.
And again, he took a hit to his personal political. He spent a ton of political capital on building that pipeline. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. Got no credit for it. He got it done. He got it done. Trudeau committed tens of billions of dollars to effectively save the Canadian auto sector by transforming it into one of the world's most comprehensive electrical vehicle supply chains. We need to build those homes, and we need to do something about manufacturing like this. Well, let's be honest. Doug Ford, at least on the EV thing, manufacturing portion, when he saw the light, was all in and has been on Team Canada. That's one thing we got to give him credit for.
We do have to give him credit for it.
But Ontario is manufacturing based, and therefore, if all the auto companies would have gone udders up, he would have been in real trouble.
You do need to remember, though, that Doug was not. He was against wind and he was against electrical until his wealthy donor friends got all invested in those things, and now he's all in on it. He did do the right thing. He just did it for the wrong damn reason. But he did do the right thing, so we'll credit him for that because it is job creation.
Yep. And then he invested to build up Montreal's world-class aerospace industry. Trudeau has subsidized startups and established firms alike in commercial applications of artificial intelligence, advanced telecommunications, research and production, modular housing, and Canada's first new vaccine plant in about 40 years. To date, the Trudeau government has committed about $51 billion to providing more housing. Okay. Again, not only preparing us for the economy of the future, but getting in and cleaning up, picking up the slack of several decades of provincial governments on the housing file. Trudeau came to office promising to reduce the poverty rate. It's now 9%, down from 14.5% when he first took office. That improvement in Canadian well-being has been achieved in large part by Trudeau's Canada Child Benefit, which has lifted as many as 500,000 children from poverty. And if you'll remember, the Conservatives thought that if they gave you choice in childcare by sending you a little bit of a rebate after you've already forwarded all the money, that would make the difference in child poverty. No, it didn't. That improvement in the Canadian well-being has been, so I mentioned that, Trudeau's national daycare program has also helped reducing monthly daycare expenses to $400 from about $2,000, dropping further to about $200 in the next 2 years. Think you have trouble making ends meet now if you have kids. Imagine if you didn't have that daycare supplement. Also helping is the Trudeau government's introduction of limited dental care and pharmacare, a foundation for future governments to build on. But somewhere along the way, Trudeau became so off-putting that even the more remarkable of his government's achievements failed to register with Canadians. There were blunders and scandals, of course. There was the carbon tax fiasco, and the federal civil service became bloated even as work was outsourced to higher-priced consultants. The greatest damage to the Liberal brand was inflicted by the we know best arrogance that has long been a hallmark of the Trudeau's party. These latter statements are a little debatable, but I can understand how some people would see it this way. None of which changes the fact that, on average, Canadians are better off than they were in 2015. So, again, if the question was, are you better off now?
Yes, you are.
Than before him? Yes. Clearly. In a moment of frustration, Trudeau said, quote, "At one point, people are going to have to realize that maybe I know what I'm doing." Well, no, they don't. But the historians will.
We've been saying this for the last couple of years now. His government has been transformative, much like Pearson's minority government was.
And good things.
Pearson got us, mandatory 2 weeks vacation, 40-hour work week, employment insurance. There was the Canadian flag. There was a few other things that his minority government brought us.
Yes, good things.
Good things. Things that we all take for granted today.
Things that we all incorporate as part of the basic Canadian identity today.
We need to change 2 weeks to 4 weeks. If we could get a third mandatory, would be a great start.
Yes.
We don't get enough vacation time.
We do not.
We just don't. We don't.
It's clear. Okay. There is other stuff, kids and cubs, because I could keep on going about this because I've got clips and stuff. But we're nearing the 2-hour mark already.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Grizzly,
I gotta get.
Do we have a show?
Mademoiselle Lola needs to go for a walk. So we have a show. Just before we wrap, I want to show you something that came across my timeline. This was from yesterday at 11:25 in the morning. Pay attention to who wrote this. From Anonymous. You know who Anonymous is?
Dun, dun, dun.
Vote for Poilievre's Conservatives if you want to pay higher rent, more expensive groceries, eliminate health care, and get paid less for your work while your pension is destroyed. Things are bad now, but can get worse. A vote for Poilievre is a vote against yourself. We've been saying this for a long time. You have Anonymous backing it up. You might want to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Pierre has definitely gotten Anonymous's attention. It's not the first time I see him mentioned in an anonymous tweet, by the way.
No, I know. They've been paying attention for a while. One other thing I want to add to here, when it comes to the whole 51st state thing, this is kind of cute. The population of Canada is slightly bigger than the population of California. Make it the 51st state, and it'll most likely become another California-sized blue state worth somewhere around 50 electoral college points. The GOP would never win again.
Now, that's assuming if this was done, that Canada would come in as one state. But we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. So let's say we come in as the 51st to 63rd states.
Yeah, then what happens, right? Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. But the point is that we're not interested.
Yeah.
I know that you guys, from the time you are in the womb, it's genetic. You have the most developed hyperthyroid sense of self. But we live right next to you. We've seen you clip your toenails. We've seen you use the bathroom with the door open. The romance and the mystery is gone. It's like you fart as you pass by. It's like we know what you look like without makeup. All right? It's like don't come and tell us that we want to be you. We know you. There's a reason we chose to be us. We like you enough, but
we like to present both sides of an argument, and sometimes the other side makes no sense. We live in a dictatorship and we have next to no military, so what could be worse? I love Canada, but it's gone. Franklin, there is no metric on earth that will say that could agree with you that we live in a dictatorship. We don't.
No.
See, by virtue of the fact that you can say that out loud and not be arrested and thrown in jail for making that statement, because you have freedom of expression under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We do not live in a dictatorship.
Dictators don't step down.
The leader just stepped down. Yeah.
The alleged dictator we just showed you the alleged dictator in front of a microphone telling the entire nation that I plan to relinquish power and control. Find me a dictator who does that. And then find me a dictator who does that that's not passing the power on to his son. And then we'll talk. In some cases, his child's son. In some cases, it has been a woman that passed the power down to on very, very few occasions. It has happened. But yeah. All right. Kids and cubs.
One quick question, though.
Sure.
What's the difference between Trump and Greenland? You can't buy Greenland.
Ooh. Ooh. Snap. Oh, burn. Oh, Sheila Copps had a great one for Pierre Polyev the other day. Like this one in his video. She actually posted, even his books are fake.
Yes.
That was done behind a green screen of what the house looks like, because there were photos of his family in the thing, but if you noticed, he's not casting a shadow on anything behind him.
Yeah, it's a green
at
screen.
all. Yeah, where in the world? You know, where's Waldo? Where's Weirdo? We'd like to know where he is. Kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the True North Eager Beaver, the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We're glad that you joined us because we love making this for you. Now, before we do our usual stuff, we just need to take a little moment and send all our love and good healing vibes and courage to Kit Mateo, who's having surgery today, I believe, on his eye. Seems that it's a routine surgery for this type of thing, so nothing to be too concerned about, and all expectations are that everything will go fine. But surgery is a surgery, so let's just again connect with our inner Care Bear and send some healing energy and some comfort and some courage. I'm sure he's going to be very, very, very brave. So but wishing for the best, Mateo, and hope you make a very speedy recovery and you're back to your wonderful, delightful, and playful self. That's from your friends, Mr. Beaver, Mr. Grizzly. Big hugs. All right, you focus on getting better and come back to us when you're all better and show us how you're doing. Okay.
Strabismus surgery. Strabismus, is that what it's? Strabismus surgery, both eyes.
Strabismus. Yes. Miss. Okay. Great. Yeah, I think he's going later this afternoon, so I think we still have the family on the show with us today. All right. And Kitland M made a comment in the chat that I wanted to mention because I thought it was particularly good. But of course, it's Kitland M. All the comments are good.
She never misses. Never.
Right. The problem they have, talking about the Conservatives, with having troubles with the way that the prime minister has left. Not like that. Oh my God, you're so selfish and arrogant to have done this at this time, even though we've been asking you for the last 2 years to do it. Anytime now. But the problem they have is that he's not gone yet. They wanted to have the show of non-confidence and an election with a one majority party unprepared in any way for it. Yeah, they don't get the video of the non-confidence vote of him being defeated. What they have is a video of a man at one of the most consequential points of a very public career having the courage and the respect for the people of the nation to go to a camera and actually say probably the hardest words he'd asked to speak professionally. And we have another guy who's sent it in by video and won't even talk to us in person. And
there's no Q&A session.
No Q&A session. And I'll remind you also that Pierre literally called the prime minister cowardly, I think, for resigning in this way. Okay. Get some cups. That's the end of this episode. If you would like to make sure you don't miss an episode, if you happen to be listening to us on podcast version, well, there, right on your screen, Mr. Grizzly will make it appear like magic. Bling, there you go. The QR code that you scan. And thanks to the Ray Girl, if you do that, well, it brings you to our pod page. And if you're listening, that's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And at that page, we have a little button that's called subscribe. And if you go there and you click it, well, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, zoop.
Usually, I'm not fully updated.
Inbox.
I'm not fully updated yet because we have some issues with the way the algorithm works and the way that the numbering scheme works. We can't do 568 A and B. It's 568. Everything has to be sequential. So I have to work with some of the titling and some of the stuff to try and get it up and running. So there's some complications there. So I'm a little behind, and I apologize. I'm going to get it caught up today.
Wonderful. Then I owe you a couple of episode descriptions as well.
Yeah, and we'll have to have a meeting because there's things that are complicated. So yeah, we'll have to have a meeting about it.
Okay, perfect.
So I can get it sorted.
Yep, and I'm having the feeling that Acast is no longer sending our information to the places like FeedSpot or whatnot, because I went to look to see where we were with FeedSpot at the beginning of this year, because last year we were like top 3.
Yeah, it's not. I've tried to change it with FeedSpot, but there's a problem there. It's like, because they still think we're on Megaphone. Yeah, they still think we're on Megaphone. And
we haven't published anything on Megaphone in 8 months now.
Yeah, so it's a pain in the arse, because we were the number 3 rated political podcast in the country,
and now we've just disappeared.
Yeah, except we're still putting out content every day, 5 days a week. But the problem being that because we switched from one provider to another, they don't see it anymore, and I'm trying to steer them to it, and it's been a nightmare. Just the hoops you got to jump through, and for some reason, our audio version has been duplicated 3 times. So if you go to Spotify and type us in, you're going to find 3 different feeds. I'm like, there's only I can't delete the other 2 for some reason. So there's some frustration taking place there.
Yep, indeed. And I'm sure that we've lost a few people along the way as a result of all these changes. And with the show, we can't find the show anymore, and it's not obvious where to go look.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So hopefully the people have found us at our YouTube page. And but yes, all that will be we'll be with you hopefully in regular stead soon enough. But these there's things that are completely beyond our control. We have no idea how they're happening, why they're happening, when they're happening. Sometimes we don't even know they've happened until months later.
And trying to get help for some of these things is like,
yeah, right. But hey, if you're out there and you can hear us, find our pod page and press subscribe. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, you need to make like Elaine and surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where our buttons like, share, and subscribe are rather lonely after the holidays. We'd like you to come and, well, click them. Just click them. When you do, we get ourselves a little bit of happy, and it helps us with the algorithm. So we thank you for that. Now, if you would like to help us in yet other ways, Let's say, for example, financially, because it's the beginning of the year and there's lots of news already, and you think that we are bringing it to you in a fresh and calm way, not as excited and fear this and run and be scared. So, presenting you the news with appropriate profanity and in a manner that tries to not raise your cortisol levels intentionally. Then, you might want to make a little contribution. That QR code by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our coffee page where you will find our tip jar, or the hydration fund, as we affectionately call it. But of course, all the money goes back into the show. But you will find it there. And if you want to make a little contribution, we would appreciate it. Donate is always appreciated. And if you can't donate, you don't need to worry, because you've already paid your tax by giving us the gift of your participation and your attention. Our cups overflow with your generosity. So please, 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 we want to hear from you. So write to us. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. You can reach us on our socials, the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge at True Eager, also on the shitter at True Eager, at the Bad Place, our Facebook page, which is our original site, Facebook, True North Eager Beaver. And if you go to our coffee page, as we mentioned before, more content is going on that in terms of following us a bit as a website. So you don't have to donate if you subscribe to the coffee page, but you will be kept abreast of everything that's going on with all things True North Eager Beaver Media if you subscribe there. So we hope that you do. Thank you very much. And a nice moment here to give a little shout out to Kit Carlos, who yesterday sent us a little tip via our coffee page. And I say little, again, another enthusiastic expression of encouragement. And we thank you so much for being so kind to us over the last short while, because you're relatively new to us. But thank you. And once again, with a beautiful comment. All right, parties are over. Time to get back to work. With all that's happened just in the last few days, we need our Eager Beaver family to stay strong, healthy, and expanding all 2025 and beyond. Here's a little something to help start on a good note. Thanks. Carlos, I don't know what to say.
Thank you.
You spoil us, but we are so happy that you think that what we do has that much worth. And we will keep on trying to do what we do, and hopefully you will still enjoy what we do. But thank you for becoming a member of the Beaver Lodge. We are very, very appreciative of all that you do for us. All right, because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs. Write your media outlets and ask them why they're not curious about where Pierre happens to be.
Where in the world is Pierre Poilievre?
I can't
Carmen
acapella
Sandiego.
well, unfortunately. I know. I was just because they always had that acapella group doing the music behind that. Also, if your representative happens to be a conservative MP, maybe let them know that you think that the party leader is looking a little weak right now. Ask them where he is. Send them some emails, make their phones ring. Bother them. Bother them. Little good trouble. Where's your leader?
Good trouble.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom, please.
Words of wisdom. Well,
yeah, I know.
I'm struggling today with that.
I know, right?
Everything is just so bizarre, upside down and backwards. Now, I'm not flabbergasted. I'm not even exasperated, and I'm not stressed about any of the political things that are taking place in this country. I'm not. Everybody's like, "Oh, how do you feel about Trudeau stepping down?" And I go, "Seems like the right thing to do for the party." They're like, "What? I thought you'd be freaking out." And I go, "Told you once. I've told you 100 times. I've never voted for the man." What? You think I'm a fanboy? No, I think he's done a good job for Canadians, but I've never voted for him. I don't live in his riding. So words of wisdom, take a deep breath. relax, and check out my ASMR. Shameless
Smooth. I approve. All right, kids and cubs, be kind to and gentle with yourself. We'll be back with a little Easter egg. So, Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock.
Okay, just give me a second here while I locate where I left the cock. There it is.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs. Just saw also in the chat from KidFim speaking about Karina Gould. She also is a name that hadn't been mentioned early on, but it seems that there's more talk rising because it seems that she might be expressing an interest. Now, for the Easter egg, kids and cubs, I don't have anything particularly insightful or funny to say, but I realized that yesterday because we had to cut off a little shortly or abruptly, that Kit Elaine never got to see me enjoy one of her yummy, delicious treats. So,
I do have an Easter egg actually. It's a short video clip. While you're in bliss, there, I'm going to show you this because
I love
this
you
is
so much,
just
Kit Elaine.
this is just we're looking at a man with dementia here.
Oh, I was doing so well.
The world that
Not you.
as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't.
I don't know what to say about that. Like,
Oh my God. This guy.
yeah, well, we can go on for several hours today about this, but we don't have time. So I'm gonna wrap it up, and I will bid you all adieu. We will see you real soon, tomorrow morning for sure. Until then, you take care and be safe.
Big kiss.